Hi, welcome to our very first YouTube lesson. We are going to start our unit on percents. If you don't have your note packet, calculator, and something to write with, pause the video and go grab those things and come back to me. Our first lesson here deals with percents, decimals, and fractions, and going back and forth between those three forms. Percent by definition means per or out of 100. The percent, we just basically take the number, the percent number, and divide it by 100. There's usually three ways to write a number. We can write it in percent form, fraction form, and decimal form, and these are all equal to each other. We're going to start by writing percent, so we will start with a percent, and we're going to change them into fractions in simplest form. Let's start with example 1, 37%. 37% means 37 out of 100. We have our fraction, we just need to see if it's in simplest form. Is there anything that we can simplify this by? No. So we have our final answer there of 37 hundredths. Example 2, 24% means 24 out of 100. Is there anything that we can divide these both by? Yes, we can divide by 4. 24 divided by 4 is 6, and 100 divided by 4 is 25. I'd like you to pause the video right now and take a moment to do these two your turn questions. And then when you're done with the problems, hit play again and we'll see how you did. Hit pause now. All right, let's see how you did. 12% is 12 out of 100. Can we divide it? Yes, we can by 4. That ends up being 3 out of 25, 3/25 for that answer. For the next one, 55% is 55 out of 100. I can divide those both by 5, and I end up with 11/20. We'll go ahead and move on now to writing percents as decimals. So we will still start with our percent, but we're going to change it to a decimal now. We are still dividing by 100 to do this. So 9%, I'm going to write it as 9 out of 100. Remember this fraction bar means to divide. So we're really doing 9 divided by 100. You can take your calculator and put in 9 divided by 100 and we end up with 0.09. There's a little trick that you can do when you divide by 100, which is what we will always be doing here. Because there's 2 zeros in 100, we can move the decimal 2 places to the left because we're dividing by 100. Our number is going to get smaller, so we're going to move backwards 2 spots. So if I start with where my decimal was here at the 9 and go backwards 2 spots, bounce, bounce, put in a 0 there, and we end up with our answer of 0.09 there. Let's move on to example 4. 0.5%, half of a percent, would be 0.5 out of 100. Write that as a division problem, 0.5 divided by 100. And you can either put that on your calculator or use that little trick of bouncing back 2 spots. We'll need another 0 there, so it will be 0.005, which is 5 thousandths. We have one more example on the next page, so go ahead and flip over to the next page. 250% as a decimal. You'll notice 250% is greater than 100%. Let's see what happens to our decimal when we write this one. 250%, we'll put it over 100. Do the division problem, 250 divided by 100. The decimal's really right here right now. Bounce it back 2 spots. We end up with 2.5. When we had percents that were, up in examples 3 and 4, less than 100%, we ended up with decimals that were less than 1. When we have a percent like example 5 that's over 100%, we end up with a decimal that's bigger than 1. And that's because 100% is equal to 1 whole. So for more than 100%, we're going to get an answer that's more than 1 whole. I'm going to ask you to pause it again and try these next 2 questions. All right, welcome back. We have 27% as a decimal, 27 out of 100, which when we divide that, backwards 2 spots is 0.27. And then this next one, 3.4% is 3.4 out of 100. Division problem is 3.4 divided by 100. backwards 2 spots, we'll need a 0 there. It's going to be 0.034 or 34 thousandths. Now, we're not going to start with the percent, we're going to start with the decimal. And when we start with the decimal, we're kind of going in the other direction. And so instead of dividing by 100, we are going to be multiplying by 100. So let's look at example 6, 13 hundredths as a percent. We would multiply that 0.13 times 100. Little trick again, we are still going to move it 2 places, but now we'll go in the other direction. We're going to go to the right. So this way, 2 spots ends up being 13%. Let's do one more together here. 27 thousandths, we're going to write that as a percent, multiply it by 100, which means move that over 2 spots, and we get 2.7%. Go ahead and try those next 2. Hit the pause button, and I'll meet you back here. All right, let's check and see how you did. 4 hundredths is 0.04. We're going to multiply it by 100 over 2 spots, and we end up with 4%. 578 thousandths. Multiply it by 100. That means move it over 2 spots. It ends up being 57.8%. Good job. Now, we're going to start with a fraction, and we're going to change it into a percent. With this first example, example 8, there's 2 ways that you can go about doing that. When your denominator is a factor of 100, we can go ahead and make a new fraction out of 100. So can I multiply 10 by something to get 100? Yeah, I can multiply it by 10. That means I'll multiply my numerator by 10. I get 30. 30 out of 100 is the same as 30%. Another method that you can use is just straight division. 3 over 10 is the same as 3 divided by 10. We'll get the decimal version of 3/10, and that is 0.3. And then if we want to go ahead and change that into a percent, we're going to have to multiply it by 100, which means moving it over 2 spots. That comes out to, put a 0 in there, 30%. Example 9, we can really only use the division way because 6 is not a factor of 100. So we are going to do 5 divided by 6. When you do that on your calculator, or if you remember your fraction decimal equivalencies, that is 0.83, where the 3 repeats. This is the decimal version. I need to change it into a percent by multiplying by 100. And when I do that, I get 83, but now remember this 3 is repeating, so there's a whole bunch of 3's after it, so it'll be 0.3 repeating after that percent. So there's our answer there. Hit pause, try these next 2 questions, and we'll check and see how you did. All right, welcome back. Let's take a look at these 2. 4/5 we could do both ways, so I'm going to show both ways. You only needed to do it one way, but I'm going to show both ways so that I cover everybody here. 4/5, I can change it into something over 100 times 20 times 20, and I get 80. 80 over 100 is the same as 80%. If you did it the division way, it comes out to 4 divided by 5 is 0.8. Move the decimal over 2 spots and put a 0 there. It ends up being 80%. Either way is perfectly fine. 5/16, we will have to use the division way. 5 divided by 16. That comes out to be 0.3125. Change it into a percent by multiplying by 100, and we get 31.25%. Right now, what I'm going to have you do is fill out this chart. I'll explain what you need to do. 350%, you should change that into a decimal and then into a fraction. Then in the next row, the 0.025, you're going to change it into a fraction and to a percent. And finally, 1/8, you're going to change into a decimal and into a percent. Hit pause, try those, and come back. All right, welcome back. We'll take a look at this. 350%, I just divide by 100 to end up with the 3.5 for the decimal. And for the fraction, I put 350 over 100. I divided them both by 50 to get 7/2. For the next row, I multiplied by 100 and moved the decimal over 2 spots and got 2.5% for my percent. And for my fraction, 0.025 is 25 thousandths, so I wrote 25 over 1,000, and then simplified that. I divided them both by 25 and got 1/40th. And then finally 1/8, I did 1 divided by 8 to get 0.125. Multiplied by 100, moved the decimal right 2 spots, and got 12.5%. That's all there is for today. Thank you for joining me for our first lesson, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.